more than one of my family members has fallen over at this particular location, so I have to be careful. So that text that I just read out there, the Instructions of Cormac, if you could hear any of that or any of me today, that the reason why I've gone for that today is where I got the title of this channel. That's where I got the line "taking care of ancient lore" from. So it's just me and the crows and the sheep here today, and a couple of dog walkers. But that text, we have it by way of a couple of manuscripts from 15th, 16th centuries. The text itself is believed to date from about the 8th century, and the man in the title, Cormac MacArt, is kind of semi-mythological, but if he did live, the genealogies would put him in around pre-Christian times. So I think it's around maybe 286, sometime in the 3rd century. Oh, we'll duck in here to the mound of hostages. So it was that kind of thing. The Instructions of Cormac, Tecosca Cormaic. So it's presented in a kind of a dialogue, and Cormac is placed up as the like this brilliant king who everybody should turn to for wisdom, and particularly new kings. This is the advice for them. And so in medieval times and a bit before that, there was this genre of literature known as a Mirror of Princes, or a Speculum Principium, and it was basically a text that was written for the purpose of advising a new king how to rule. Princes, lords, anyone like that, when they'd come of age, would be this is what the intended audience was, which kind of gives you the idea of, well, why did nobody write those anymore for like elected representatives? This is how you govern in a moral way. So there was plenty of them, and I suppose you could even see like Machiavelli's The Prince is sort of like a satirical take on that, or it's the end of the genre, and that was the 1500s. So there's a few more of them that we still have. There's about 6 other ones that are not really in translation. This one today, the Instructions of Cormac, the translation that I've read from is Kuno Meyer's translation from 1909. So the language in itself is a little bit archaic. I know there is a modern translation that came out about 10 years ago, which I haven't been able to get my hands on, unfortunately. But it's a wonderful piece. I haven't read the whole thing. As I say, it was intended as a piece of literature, so in the 8th century and so on, and then throughout the Middle Ages, it would have been expected that these are the kind of things that kings were supposed to read to give them some sort of moral purpose. However, the guy who's done the new translation, Professor Maxim Phonem, I read one of his papers, and he was making a point about something else, that there is an element to this text, so that it was kind of assumed that these things would have been written in the 8th century by clerics, as in people like monks or priests living in monastic settings. But there's not a whole lot of religious elements to it. Like, it's all like, taking hostages, making war on your neighbours, giving out loads of drink, all kinds of stuff. By the way, I did slightly edit the text because I thought there was a line of abundance of wine and mead in Kuno Meyer's text comes towards the end, and it didn't fit. So me, just a random guy in 2025, decided to edit this, centuries old text because I thought it sounded better. I'd moved the abundance of wine and mead up. But there's no mention of being pious and going to mass and all this kind of stuff. There's like every once in a while there's like through this, all of this is through God. There's not really that much mention of religious aspects to it. So Fonum sort of says, I'm not sure if this is really written by a cleric, and he doesn't say that it's pre-Christian, but he says there is a mention of something in the Instructions of Cormac that does sound like something that the clerics wouldn't have liked. And that thing is, anybody guess what it was? Well, the bit that's in it that's probably not very Christian and that's more likely pagan is that when he talks about warrior bands, about lads, going off on the rip, basically. So it would have been a thing in this time, pre-Christian, Iron Age, Bronze Age, this sort of time, that young men would be kind of kicked out of the family home, especially if they were supposed to be a king or any kind of warrior. They'd be kicked out, they'd be told to go off and live in the woods in a band of Fianna and fend for themselves. So they learn how to hunt and they'd, be amongst their warrior bands. That's in this text. That's the kind of thing you would expect that if it was a cleric that they would have taken out, because anything to do with the Fianna and bands of young men roving around the countryside in the woods basically had associations of druidry, of the druids and paganism and that sort of thing. So they would have stripped that out. So Fonum says there's a little bit in this, in the Tecosca Cormaic, that may mean that what we're actually dealing with here is something that's actually older than the 8th century, that it could be something a lot older than that. The other aspect of that is that then gets you into this sort of situation, which is why I came to Tara today, because we're not really sure how High Kings or any kind of king was inaugurated. We would suspect there's only maybe 1 or 2 reports on this, but that you'd expect that at the start, when the king is being inaugurated, first thing that would be done would be whoever was overseeing it would read out his genealogy. So Cormac, son of Cormac, son of Con, or whoever, they give the whole genealogy. And the next thing they would do, one of the reports says, is that they would read out something like what I've just read you, like the Tecosca Cormaic, that there would be some moral code that would be read out, and either the assembled people would vocalize their assent, or the king would, or something like that, but that something like this would have been read. And so that's why I came here today with the Tecosca Cormaic, because probably it was something similar to this would have been recited here maybe 2,000 years ago. So there you go. Those are the Instructions of Cormac, and that is where I got taking care of ancient lore, because that's one of the things that king in ancient Ireland would have been expected to do, along with everything else. So that's it for today. See you the next time.